Welcome to Eve News. This is Manero. It is Tuesday, September 1st, 2020. We are going to cover some mechanic that came out today called Quantum Core. So we'll talk a little bit about that and what that means for structures all over New Eden. And we'll also talk about the Keepstar in Y-2ANO fountain. That Keepstar was attacked and set into its final timer, which will be coming up on Friday. So we'll talk about that. First, I want to say hello to a couple of researchers from Talking in Stations, Manixar.
Well, hello.
And Grigorin.
Hello?
Hey guys, good to see you. All right, let's go through some of the numbers and then we'll get to the news. So, looking at most violent regions in the last 24 hours, Delve continues to be on that list at the very top with 1,086. Catch in number 2, or second place, 698, basically 700. And then Fountain, 539. There was obviously some activity there today. Most violent systems in the last 24 hours were in Delve, NTAC 8, YET, 174 ships. TCAG, that's TCAG TAC 3 in period basis. And that is one of the important systems in period basis. It's essentially an entry point into the Delve regions from the south. 186 ships there. And then finally 1DQ1 TAC A, that's the headquarters of Delve itself, or the Imperium, with 130 ships destroyed. Also, a couple Keepstars went down there. Remind me when we get to the news portion, or we get to the analysis portion. Okay, the last area we'll cover here, our second to last area, is most violent systems in low-sec today. This is the last 24 hours. There's 582 ships destroyed in... I'm going to try it. It's rough. This one is in Black Rise. The system is called Pinecosto. Pinecosto. Yes, that wasn't as hard as I thought it was going to be. The second place for low sec is Tama, a traditional battleground, 316 ships destroyed there. And in third place, another traditional system called Rancer. That's in Cinque's own region, 172 ships destroyed there. Oh, interesting. In fourth place, honorable mention in the Bleaklands region is Huala. And that one had 240 ships destroyed, but very few pods, which put it at number 4 behind Rancer. And Rancer had 183 pods. So combined with the 172 ships, that was more destruction in Rancer than in Huala. Most violent systems in high sec, Narja, top of the list. I think it's going to stay there, maybe forever, with 1,393 ships destroyed, with over 1,000 pods destroyed as well. Very interesting. Second place is Jita, the traditional leader in this group, been dethroned. There are 413 ships destroyed there. And in third place in the Forge region is Anaya, 364 ships destroyed. Let's look at the ratings, since this has been very interesting since the last monthly economic report. The last 24 hours, you're going to see basically a combination of Awasa, which is controlled by Fraternity, and Cobalt Edge, which is controlled by Horde. And Fraternity system, the system in Awasa of XTAC 9 tops the list with 41,000. These are much more reasonable rates for NPC ratting. We saw over the weekend they were in the 60,000s, which was tremendous. Now it's down to what it's traditionally supposed to be, which is about 40 to 45,000, or 35 to 45. And just a couple more here. QTAC V in Cobalt Edge, about 40,000 NPCs destroyed. And then in Awasa again, RJBC TAC I at 38,755. Okay, that's your activity levels for PvP and PvE. Let's take a quick look at top SOV changes in case there's anything interesting here. The 7th Sanctum picked up 2 systems. Let's see where they picked them up. Cloud Ring. So they have 196 member 7th Sanctum. They are on their way. They actually lost 4 systems too, but that's probably them trading territory or leaving one area to go into another. Rote Capel picks up 5 systems. That's in the same area, if I'm not mistaken. Rote Capel, a long time PvP group, always remained small. Never joined a coalition. They are independent, and they pick up a little more territory in Tribute, which is where they've been, the better part of a year and a half. Unspoken Alliance drops 5, and this may be the trade-off here. Let's see.
Yeah, they had left Veil of the Silent for Syndicate within the past couple of weeks.
So this is what Rote Capel is picking up, it looks like, those 5 systems. Yeah, from Unspoken Alliance. That makes sense. Infessus, down here losing 3 systems. That's just a cleanup effort. I think Infessus is...
Yeah, that Bastion's renters.
Say that again, you got distorted there for a second.
They're Bastion's renters?
Correct. So that's no surprise since Fountain has taken over, and that's probably where those systems drop. Let's take a look. Yep, Fountain region. So that's a... Oh, what a cool logo. That was a renting group for Bastion. I wonder where those groups have moved on to. Interesting.
I know that some of Initiative's renters have started renting from Trigger Happy.
So they moved further north, maybe? Okay. Alliance movements in the last 7 days. We'll check this out a couple times a week. We don't have to check it every day because it's usually the same statistics, but I did see this yesterday and didn't comment on it. Defensive orders, 2,000 people, or basically 1,916 joined Defensive Order of Mayhem, which is Doom. It's not the original Doom. That's spelled with zeros. This is a different Doom. The original Doom is D00M dot. And that was the founding member of NC dot long time ago, 2011 or so. So that corporation has since gone extinct. This is a different Doom spelled with actual O's. I think it's Russian, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, the big thing that sticks out to me is on this alliance movements list right now is conflict theory.
Conflict theory. Okay, we'll come back to that. This is a new player group. I believe we've heard of them. This is the Superior NPC Corporation. Oh. I think they were part of the HiSec group. No, we need to find out who this group is and who Doom is. And let's see what else. Conflict theory. Let's talk about them.
They were most of what was Tribute in the period leading up to their most recent collapse. Most except for the alliance that had the Executor Tribute. Everyone else started most of the other corps started a new alliance that was Conflict Theory, and it looks like all of them have left and now started a new alliance just recently with a few other low-sec groups.
All right. That's wild. All right, I guess that's all we have. Thanks for that, by the way, Gagorn. Good research there. Let's go to talk about some of the bigger stuff that was happening today. We'll do that right after this little break that we're going to take. We'll be right back. Stick with us. Where is that thing? Try this out. Okay, I clearly don't know what I'm doing because I thought there was an ad running. So just in case it is running. Okay. 15 seconds left. All right. Welcome back. After that advertising, I think there was an ad that went out, but I'm not sure. If not, you just looked at my lovely face for a minute. Total confusion. Okay, let's dive into the biggest news of the day, and that is the quantum cores were announced today, and they'll be installed rather soon. Now, before we talk about good or bad or any of that kind of stuff, let's just say what this is.
Well, this is going to be a mechanic where, in order to bring a structure online, you will need this quantum core to do so, uh, and you will have to go in and once it's through its vulnerable state or the initial anchoring state, you dock in. You have to install this before it will move past that state. So as long as this core is not installed, uh, the structure will remain, the structure's hull will remain invulnerable, right? So you'll be able to attack it, or vulnerable, so you'll be able to attack it. Once this goes online, once this goes online, it will go to its normal shield vulnerable state.
So,
and each there's an increased cost for each tier of structure. So, like the Astor House costs like 10 bill, and like Keepstar costs like 30 bill. So there's different price ranges for these, and you get them from NPC stations. It seems like, at least at first.
okay, so it's an added fee to possessing to start on the face of it. Let's just break down this one part. This is an added fee to have a structure. And if you can't afford it, if you can't buy it off an NPC, how can you get one for your structure? How else?
You could destroy somebody else's structure and loot their core, because they're indestructible pretty much, and they will 100% drop. So if you can't afford one, you'll need to go blow up somebody else's structure and loot theirs.
Right, so it's a conflict driver.
It very much could be, yes.
So the strong will take from the weak, and that's one of the criticisms, that the small groups will have less people to be able to defend their structures, and therefore have less resistance to being ripped off.
I don't know how much people are going to be willing to go after structures just for these items. The larger alliances will probably be able to absorb the cost anyway, so it's not going to be a huge difference. And they're already put stuff in place, so people were removing unneeded structures, as it were. Mm-hmm. So I think this is it's going to make new structures cost a little bit more. I think the biggest cost is going to be later on, when the existing structures have to have it too, right?
Right. The stuff that's already out there. Let's look at this.
Yeah,
look at this complex graph. Do you know what this explains? This is kind of the how the quantum core fits into the structure.
Correct.
In its current form, I guess, or when it gets in there, this is what it's going to look like, and where it's going to be, and where I mean, I think I have to really look at this for a while to understand it. Something about a tether doesn't work or something when it's not on.
Right. If it's in the hull state, I mean, if you don't have the core installed, well, okay, so it's 600,000 for the Astra House, but which that doubles the cost of an Astra House pretty much, right?
What's an Astra House go
just
for
current
these
state.
days?
Around 500 mil, 600
Yeah.
mil. So
I see a typo. You see that RE? It's a capital. Just so you know. We'll write them and tell them. Okay, so Astra House is 600. That's 600 million more. And although the Keepstar is 30 billion more, the Satoyo itself is 10 billion more.
yeah, but for the cost of the structure, that's like it's not even like a third of the cost or a tenth of the cost of the Keepstar, but it's like doubling the Astra House. So
Oh, I think it is 30 billion is
Yeah, with those, you're a bigger thing that you'd have to worry about is the amount of cargo space they'd take, because you can't move those cores around without a jump freighter.
freighter probably.
and that's going to be another way to get them right is to destroy the ship trying to carry them to their location. So
Well, let's
there's
see.
another avenue to drop one.
It's actually 250,000. I think that does fit into a jump freighter, just barely, because I think jump freighters have around 250,000 meters volume, or meters 3, and meters, is that cubed? So that's a measurement of volume. That's why it's M3. So 250,000
Right.
cargo. That's really just barely under jump freighters. I think they're like 300,000. So that's fine, but there is no other ship that comes close to that. So yeah, looks like you'll have to jump freighter or freighter it. Same with the Sotia though. So
Yeah, that's a lot of the wormhole people have raised that as a major issue, since Sotios aren't unheard of, and there are a couple of people who do have Keepstars in J space,
Mhm.
and this would make it impossible for low class wormholes to get the quantum core in and keep using those.
That could be by design though as well.
Yeah, it could be bad news they didn't want to say.
Although there was a Reddit post, I believe, from CCP Rise, where it was basically described as an oversight that they didn't think about wormholes.
Well, that was CCP Rise, who may not have had anything to do with this change. And he might have said, oops, we'll look at it and there'll be some fix if they wanted to fix it. I don't know how much he knows about this if he wasn't involved in it. And I don't know if he might have been the guy that authored it, but I don't think so. But it sounded to me like he was somebody saying like, okay, well, we'll look into it and it'll be addressed. There'll be some answer for it. The answer, I think, just so we don't look at it as a complete mistake, may be that they, just what Maddox said there, Maddox are, maybe by design. You know, they don't say you can't build supers in wormholes. It's not explicit anywhere, right?
Yes, it is.
No.
You can't hold Sov in a wormhole.
Right.
So, and you need that to build a super.
Yeah, you got to have the structure in place, right?
Correct. But they don't explicitly say you can't build supers in wormholes. It's just technically not possible.
Right. Because of, well, this could be true because if they're trying to remove the old structures from the game, this could be one of the steps to do that.
Yeah, exactly. Like at least these massive structures. Now, I'm just saying that because it is a possibility. It is within the realm of possibility that CCP understands that you can't fit these cores into small wormholes. Therefore, you can't have big structures in small wormholes. And it may be a way for them to balance it without making anything explicitly allowed or not allowed. So we'll see how that ends up. Yeah, the other thing about this is, well, first thing is it's added cost to buildings. And let's look at deadlines. The
Yeah,
rollout.
if you look at Chubby Man in chat, less structure spam, that would probably be another benefit of this. You would see a lot less structure spam going on.
What is
Or
structure? What is structure spam for those that are interested?
it's where you get a lot of the Astra houses are cheaper structures and just drop them everywhere in one system to annoy whoever is the owner of the system or whoever lives there. Uh, with these quantum cores now, they could still do that, but they would be in whole state unless they want to install these cores and all those structures. And it'd actually probably be a little easier to attack when they're onlining as well. So you should definitely see less structure spam once this is live.
Well, yeah, there'll be less people who are probably going to get into player structures, or they'll think twice about it. And the player structures are becoming a dangerous thing to have, also valuable to have.
This also makes it very profitable to be a high-sec war decker because one structure killed will pay for multiple war decks.
Right. War deck cost is 100 million, and one of these things cost, I believe it was what they start at 600 million, right? That's how much they start.
Right. Yeah, the cheapest ones I believe are 600 for the Astra.
Yeah.
Astra house in the.
As Gregorian points out, one war, and if you successfully take down a structure, you've just made your money back.
Yeah, and this is guaranteed drop too. So that's
Right.
that's a solid guaranteed drop for them.
Which is not unheard of in EVE Online. They have certain things that drop all the time. So it's not against the nature of EVE Online, but it is rare. Normally, everything has a chance to be removed from the game during a transition like that. Like, something being destroyed, the loot fairy might give it to you or might not. But this thing will always drop, so it's guaranteed. Now, that doesn't mean you get to keep it. Somebody could steal it from you. Somebody could destroy it after it drops. So it's not a perfect situation, but
yeah, somebody mentioned TTT. They'll actually need one in the TTT as well. So gankers out there, they're going to be moving a $30 billion core or 30 billion is core to TTT soon.
Okay, so I think we've covered really what it is. It's a core that you can buy off NPCs for a certain amount of money. I think we looked at the range of that money. It's right here. You can look at that list. I'll put it in chat now. And in that core, if you can't afford it, you can steal it from somebody else by destroying their structure and taking it because it will drop. And the rollout. So here's the thing. How fast is this thing coming?
Well, you've got time because the seeding is, as you see there, it's just they're adding these to the market on the next patch on the 8th of September.
Next week, yeah.
Right, next week. So, and then for new structures, as you can see there, it's in October, and then it's not until after the new year, or after December, right, that the existing structures will need these installed.
Yeah. So again, next week, that's when they start seeding them, meaning you'll be able to buy them. The requirement for new structures will begin on the 13th of October, which is more than a month after that. So you're going to have a full month to buy these. I believe they won't drop. When will they stop dropping? When will people actually put them in? Probably not until the 13th, right? There'd be no reason to put one in before the 13th. Because as soon as you put one in, you make your structure a target.
Well, that depends. If you're a nullsec alliance, you might want to go ahead and start installing them in your structures.
Yeah.
If you're near the war zone, probably not. But if you're outside the war zone or conflict area, I would say they would be trying to go ahead and get these installed, possibly, or at least start moving them.
Right. I was thinking of high sec for some reason, like if you were a lone guy doing this.
Well, HiSec, yeah, but I was thinking more of the no blocks because there's a lot of structures.
Yeah,
in
definitely.
HiSec.
That's where a lot of this is going to go. We'll get into how much it's going to cost Goonswarm and Test in a few minutes. But
They can afford it.
They can afford it, yes. But the requirement for new structures begins October 13th.
That's correct. So October 13th, they will need to install these before it will come online fully.
And the requirement, here's the thing, requirement for the structures that already exist. That is not for 6 months, right?
Thereabout, yeah. It's a good ways. You've got plenty of time to get these installed in your structures. Overall, I think this is a very positive change for the game.
Wow.
Yeah, I think that it could be made to work pretty well, but I think it needs a lot of improvements during the rollout.
Well, you two guys are very positive. Today we had a stream where we talked we had an open town hall. It was just a reaction stream for an hour. It was in 2 parts because Twitch was having a hard time today. But you can check that out. It was
Very negative.
Very negative.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of their concerns. I just think that it can be made to work.
With some tweaking, yeah.
With heavy tweaking.
Mm-hmm. Okay, let's go over those dates again. Again, the seating, September 8th. Requirement for new structures, the 13th of October. Requirement for existing structures, January 12th. Okay.
All right. Yeah, but like overall, I think this is going to cut down on structure spam, which has always been an issue ever since the structures were released, especially the cheaper citadels. I think it's important to have some, a little more invested in some of these structures, especially the lower tier ones, and this will do that. So overall, I think it's going to be a positive. This gives, like you were saying, the HiSec War Deckers something to like a prize, right? That they've been lacking since all the revamp. Well, yeah, you do. I mean, it's a game. It's a style, right? Some people like to do that, and that's just their gameplay style, and that's fine. Yeah, overall, I think it's gonna be good.
Gregorian, your take on it?
Yeah, I think it could be a great conflict driver if it's tweaked to fix the issues that people have raised.
Mm-hmm.
But I do share a lot of the concerns that people raised earlier today.
Do you remember what some of those concerns were?
Well, Caleb in particular was objecting to the fact that the quantum cores came from NPC sell orders, which I definitely agree that they should be buildable by players.
But wouldn't the player be the bottleneck at that point? If you could take over that market, you could then limit all of structures.
Then someone else could build them.
It would depend on what materials were required to construct them, but that's a possibility. But I do agree with that point. But I'm overall positive about the actual mechanic itself. And obviously there's some stuff that's probably going to be worked out. Getting from an NPC is, I would rather prefer a player build it. That's just more Eve-like than buying something from NPC.
I would have preferred that something like NPCs selling blueprint copies, which would also address the issue that low-class wormhole dwellers have raised about not being able to put the cores in their structures that they have right now due to not being able to fit a freighter through.
And that would take care of that problem. But there again, you would have it. That might be the problem that they're looking at. If you were able to build them, you could just build them in the system you need them in, and just use a regular freighter and just do a direct warp to your Keepstar, direct warp to whatever, and install it, and not have to worry about transporting it.
Yeah, like they want you to risk it by transporting it.
I would have also just made it one quantum core item for everything. It's just that each structure would need a different amount of them.
Yeah, right. That's where I was on this. Instead of making them cost more, you need a certain quantity more. And maybe they are huge. So a Keepstar needs several jump freighters to bring the cores in. Just to make it more interesting, you put one person can put down a Keepstar. That makes no sense. This thing is enormous.
Like
they put down the seed and a plant grows. I get it. It's not the whole plant you're installing, but it makes much more sense that you have truckload after truckload after truckload.
putting in, I'd go with 500 cubic meters, like for the small structure. I mean, for the medium structures would be a good size. I just have the large and extra large structures require lots and lots of those. Although I think that in general, the whole structure system would have worked better if the large and extra large structures were built up upon a base medium structure as the original foundation.
Exactly. Like you would have to upgrade and increase. But you started with an Astra House, which became a Fortizar, which became a Keepstar. Yeah, you would have to grow it.
Yeah, one of the things that I'm concerned with is that this would make it less practical to drop content citadels, because you'd need to show up with that thing in order to get multiple timers out of it.
Well, that's very interesting. How does that affect content Astra houses?
Well, I mean, you would have to get the core there during when it's onlining, so you'd have to get which is only 500 meters, so it shouldn't really affect that, right? It might make it a little easier to destroy once it onlines, but I don't think it would affect that too much. Besides the fact it's just going to cost more.
Yeah, I just wondered if it would be as brainless as it used to be to drop because you can't. I believe you can't tether unless you have it, right? What are some of the things that don't work? Let's see.
Well, it will whatever the structure will remain in the onlining vulnerable stage, where the whole HP layer is exposed, and it is vulnerable to destruction. So, I believe that tether is not functioning at that level, but it might. So, until it's installed, the hull is vulnerable. So, if anybody attacks it before you get that installed, they will be attacking the hull, and they can destroy the structure immediately.
Yeah. I think this is yeah, okay. Let's look at some of the comments here. Saw some comments earlier on, so we'll go back here. This will be a huge ISK sink. This is from Romulus Lachey or Lashes. Says this will be a huge ISK sink for the next few months.
Yeah, it's going to be huge.
I have been hearing that the reason why CCP doesn't want to have them buildable by players is because they want to keep the price stable. But I disagree with that design philosophy.
But is that what they were trying to do?
They wanted to have a stable price for these objects, which is something I don't think they should be doing.
Well, okay. So, by the way, the deadline for existing structures is 3 months away. I heard it was 6, but if I look at that, and somebody just reminded me.
No, I thought that was the deadline for dropping a new structure, and it was January's, which is 4 months from now.
Okay.
It's
still not 6.
Well, yeah, it's 4-ish, you know.
Yeah, it's basically 4 and 4 plus a week, right? When this thing starts seeding on the 8th.
Plenty of time to get any structures that you want to keep, right? this installed.
If you're gone, if you fueled up a structure and you're gone 4 months, it's likely that you're on a deep vacation. And so I think they assume you're gone from the game on break or whatever. So,
Right. You could have
yeah.
the same situation, that happened prior with the last change they made.
Yeah. Check your structures.
Yes.
Tell your friends, check their structures. One other thing, let's talk about money. Is this going to be a big ISK sink for groups that have a lot of God, I'm thinking of Goonswarm, built a ton of an industrial base, basically. Not only Fortizars and Keepstars, I think they have 62 Keepstars, right? So that's already 1.8 trillion. 1.8 trillion.
Depending on how the next month or so goes, it could or could not be an issue for them.
Right. It seems like they're going to lose either way. They're going to have to pay a huge amount of money just to keep these things going, which might be okay for them. Or they're not going to have them, which is also another loss. Or they take them down and move them out and try to sell them. Who knows? But for them, 62 Keepstars, if that's the upper limit of what they might have, it's theoretical. I don't know. I've just heard that number put out by Villy. 1.8.
Yeah, they just dropped 2 Keepstars a day or so ago. 2 additional Keepstars and 1 DQ.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know. That was, I don't understand what that is, but now they have a total of 5 in 1 DQ. We mentioned that earlier today, so we'll address it now, but Goonswarm dropped an extra 2. I'm not sure what the symbolism of that was. But yeah. And
probably so just thing to their base showing that they're going to, or at least they're right now they're wanting to fight for Delve and not willing to run, or they just didn't want to move them and they had them sitting there. So
yeah. So we're going to be joined by Murray here in a second. I'll bring Murray in and we'll get to him in just a second. But I just want to finish off this money thing. Legacy, by contrast to Imperium, has less Keepstars in their territory, which is apparently under less threat so far. This war might totally change direction, and Legacy might be on the back foot with Imperium running over their territory and destroying their Keepstars. But assuming that doesn't happen, Legacy has about 1 trillion worth of cores that they have to buy for their Keepstars. So 1.8 for Goonswarm and Imperium, and 1 trillion for Legacy for these quantum cores. How's it going, Murray?
Good, how are you?
Good. So you were around this morning, and do you have any thoughts on the quantum cores? And let's actually introduce you first. This is Murray Rothbardo. What is he, a poet? I forget what he was.
I'm a mid-scale / small-scale FC, and I do a fair bit of solo stuff as well.
Mm-hmm. We're also joined by Fonsue. How's it going, Fonsue? Fonsue, I mean.
Yeah, I think on a tactical and strategic perspective, not talking about any of the economics of the ISK sink or whether it should be built or bought or whatever, it changes the perspective of how you look at attacking structures if your only reason for attacking them is greed, right? So the Imperium structures are not getting attacked for their cores. They're getting attacked because P-Hort and Tests have whatever narrative and whatnot, and they're fighting over stuff. So you're talking about structures elsewhere, even most of nullsec, lowsec, and wormholes, the amount of ISK that they're adding doesn't really change the calculus of a wormhole eviction or a fight over a low-sec structure. The only place where it probably makes a big difference is high-sec, because in high-sec there are a lot of structures, like individual Raitarus and Astrahuses, that killing currently is barely worth the cost of the war deck. And now it's worth about $1 billion to kill. It's actually profitable. So the calculus changes from, can I kill that undefended structure? Like, can I make my structure worth so little that nobody will war deck it? To, I need to be able to inflict at least 1 billion ISK worth of damage to whoever attacks my structure to discourage them from attacking that structure or any of my other structures in the future. Which means you can't defend your structure just by being really poor. You have to defend it with actual ships in space.
It's worth noting that these changes, as always, are iterative, and this is, the current state, and these numbers can easily be tweaked. Like now, a system has been added, and the numbers can be tweaked. The first numbers that we should expect to see tweaked are ones that will allow the largest cores for the XL structures to be brought into Class 1 and Class 2 wormholes, which they currently cannot.
And for like actual PvP groups, a lot of the numbers don't change anything, right? Like, I expected to inflict far more than 4 billion ISK worth of damage to anybody who was going to try and shoot a Fortizar for my current alliance, right? So they would not shoot my Fortizar for profit. The only people who have that risk are the ones who were relying on their structure only dropping such a limited amount of loot that it wasn't worth shooting in the first place.
Yeah, it changes the balance in certain ways and not in all ways. There are certain motivations that remain unmodified by this, and there are other motivations that are modified by this. And I think that it hits enough of the correct notes.
So you think it's your impression, Fonsui, is that this is a salvageable mechanic and it can be tweaked into or tweaked into parameters that work really well.
Salvageable is really politic. I would call this a good mechanic, and I think that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, like
I'm sorry. I'm still basing my observation of what people think on this morning, where it was blasted by the town hall that we had this morning. I've lost your voice there, Fonsui. Manic, you were going to say something?
Right. I was just going to say overall it's a positive change, and I agree with Fonsui. I think this is a good mechanic for the game, and I do believe that we needed to give the war deckers, the Hosek war deckers, something because a lot of stuff was taken away, and the Hosek gameplay got a lot of NOS buffs, and this kind of balances all that out a little bit more.
Sorry, Fonsui, it's not coming. You're not coming through.
Now
you're not coming through at the moment. Sorry. Try again in a few seconds when the satellite changes position. All right. He's a robot. Okay, so and Gregorian, you already said what your opinion was. Murray, what do you think this is a good thing?
Am I the robot? Am I the robot?
Okay, you're back now, robot. Go ahead.
Sorry, guys, for inflicting that on me.
We know you have a brain like a robot, but I didn't expect your voice.
Yeah. I may be full of gears and oil, but
you were right to call me on that. I said salvageable. That was the wrong word to use. Tell us.
Yeah, well, so I said it's politic because I knew that you were coming from a place of hearing a lot of complaints and negativity about it. So I'm actually coming just from Jebby's show, and Jebby actually dropped a poll in chat, and it was overwhelmingly positive.
Wow.
So I think that we're going to see a lot of mixed opinions on this. The grace period, by the way, is 4.5 months.
Yeah.
Like as of today, the requirement date is 4.5 months out. And as far as the mechanic itself, I think it's good. I do think that the numbers need tweaking, values, sizes, etc. Like the fact that you cannot bring XL cores into C1 and C2 connections, like you just can't. So obviously that needs fixing.
We talked about that earlier. Do you think that's by design?
No, it's not. It's not by design. Yeah, Rise commented on the Reddit thread. So someone pointed it out on Reddit. Rise was like, "Oops, we'll do something about it." So they'll do something about it. If I had to bet on what he was doing, this is my bet. So feel free to call me on it. I think that they're going to reduce the size of the XL cores and require more than one of them in order so they'll still be big. They're still going to require like a big chip, but it's going to be something that could fit in a C1 connection, and that will be the limit. One other potential option is that the cores could be either disassembled or compressed in some way, and it would take ISK and or time to make them usable. So you could bring them into a wormhole. It'll cost you ISK and or time, but it's doable. And you wouldn't do that in K-Space because why go to the trouble?
I mean, they'll almost, if I had to guess, like, there's no reason to make that an actual extra cost. So the way capital ship modules work is packaged, they're all consistently much smaller than they are unpackaged. And so what it'll probably look like is the cores will have a packaged weight that works fine, but when it drops from the structure, it acts as unpackaged.
Well, they want to affect the dropping side also. I see what you're getting at. But
the
they
unpackaged side lets them do what they have with that mass, which is what they were intending, which is you can't grab the Keepstar one without a freighter or a jump freighter. And so if there's a packaged unpackaged, you can do that, and there's no issue because all you have to do is get it to a Citadel and repackage it, and you can then move it again wherever you want.
I think they want it to have to be moved at its full size. That's the impression that I get, that they want it to be bulky the whole way through. So the reason that I suggested like a compression or splitting with a cost in terms of time or ISK is because if the intent, and this is me guessing at their intent, I could be wrong and you could be right, but if I'm guessing at their intent, is they want it to be difficult the whole way through, both bringing it and dropping it and grabbing it and bringing it away. They want it always to be big. So if it's going to not be that, there has to be some kind of cost to that, and there has to be ISK and or time.
Okay, guessing about their intent, this is really only a problem for wormholes, right?
Well,
pretty much.
Essentially.
You can fit the largest ones in a jump freighter, so you will never have an issue getting it where you need it to be.
Right. So here's my question to you, and I brought this up earlier in the show. Can you build supercaps in wormholes? Have they explicitly said no?
Yeah, you can't. You need SOV for that.
Right. But that's not an explicit no, you can't. It's just the mechanics don't allow for it. Is this a way then for them to say you can't have the big structures in C1s or C2s?
Well, Rise already said oops. Like he already said this was not intended and he'll fix it.
But was he the author? Is he speaking for the company?
Yeah, he's so firstly, Rise's team, Team Talos, they have been the ones on structure changes traditionally, and like this was stated, directly that they're the ones that he is the one who's been tasked with structure changes. Secondly, I do believe that this is his. This specifically is his update, as is traditional for structures.
Okay.
So, thirdly, I do not believe for one moment that he would speak definitively on something that he's not authorized to do so.
Matterall, I would not authorize to intent what is far more likely to just be that CCP forgot wormholes existed again.
They forgot.
Which they have been doing incredibly consistently in balanced patches for pretty much the past 9 months.
Longer than that.
Right.
Yeah, no, they 100% forgot about wormholes, and that's why I said those two potential things that they could do to allow this.
He made a parting comment, which was kind of funny. He said, "Miss you, Exuki." That's CCP Rise, who said, "Yeah, oops, we'll fix this. Miss you, Exuki," which was the CSM dedicated to wormholes last year, and he was an encyclopedia for them to reference, and he was also someone they could say, "This won't work for us." Since then, CSM for wormhole space, it does not exist in this edition of CSM.
What the whole collateral damage thing?
Yeah, that was part of it. That was part of the dictor change that they made that affected them, and people at this point would insert this super popular saying of saying, see, wormholers, if you just work together, you get, and that's all baloney. You elect who you elect. And that was a very interesting election for CSM, but I won't go into it today because it's too big of a rabbit hole. But the point is, CCP yet again forgot, if what Rise says is true, to check it against wormhole mass restrictions. And that's what's happened here. They'll fix it and it won't be a problem if that's what they want to do. I kind of feel like, well, I don't know. Maybe I'm just being an old man, but I kind of feel like there should be some texture with wormholes. Like the bigger the wormhole, the riskier it is, the bigger the structures you can have in there. And for C1s and 2s, maybe you shouldn't have giant structures in there to build giant factories.
Well, I mean, these are all valid questions to raise, obviously. But for now, the intent is plain because Rise said so. He's like, no, we want you to be able to have this. We didn't intend to cut this off. So yes, this is a good time to discuss that. But I think the developer intent in this, or lack of intent in this case, is clear.
I think the bigger question here is the distribution of pain between the little guy in EVE Online and the big organized, richer organizations.
The number of people in Goon Swarm or large blocks today that have been telling me this is bad for the little guy has really increased my blood pressure.
Are they looking out?
Right?
Are they looking out for the little guy?
Well, they're telling me it's bad for me when they have no comprehension of the actual underlying tactical choices that people make.
So what are they missing? What are you experiencing that they don't feel?
I mean, and this is the kind of thing that people argue, or some people would say is like, oh, like now that Fortizar's dropped 4 billion ISK, right? Big groups will go around, they'll send their SIGs, and they'll just pick on smaller groups and blow up their structures. And those people just don't have an understanding of how much it actually costs to fight a smaller group that knows what it's doing. You will not kill their Astrahuses and lose less than 1 billion ISK. You will not kill their Fortizars and lose less than 5 billion ISK.
So what you're saying is essentially, if it was worth killing before, it's still worth killing now, and if it wasn't worth killing before, this doesn't put it over the edge.
Pretty much. At least 80% of the Fortizars of smaller to medium-sized groups that have died recently have resulted in battles that cost both sides significantly more than the amount of those chips.
So if that positions this as something that doesn't change the motivation necessarily, but does make it less miserable for the people who have to grind through structures, then is that a good change or a bad change?
I think overall it's good because of the second part, which is the one thing that it does prevent is it prevents you from doing offensive structure spamming. So
yeah, it does.
Going into somebody's space and dropping 6 Raitarus, 8 Astras, whatever you're going to do, just to kind of exhaust them in terms of structure grind.
Good.
Yeah, so
You may not necessarily defend all of those timers. You may not actually intend to defend a bunch of those timers. Your goal is just to create more work for them to increase the level of burnout that your opponents are experiencing.
So the days of towering into your enemy's base cheaply are over.
Yeah, I'm going to experience a lot less burnout if every time I kill one of your Raitarus, out pops 1 billion ISK, right?
Yeah, so I think it has changed it that way. So there's always this question of who is hurt and who is helped by change, and I think that's conflating multiple issues, because people talk about that in terms of going forward and in terms of the direct impact of the fact that it changed from one thing to another thing. And I think that the change period, the period of flux in and of itself, is always going to be, the rougher seas are better weathered by the larger ships. That's always going to be the case. Going forward, though, I think that overall this is a positive change. And I think that when we hear a lot of this is only going to hurt the little guy. This is only going to hurt the little guy. What they're really saying is that these are the small ships who are going to get battered around by these waves.
I want to come to Kramer the Gamer's point in just a second, which is a retort to what you just said. But before we do that, I also want to point, just kind of put some emphasis on the point that you just made, the content Astra houses that people put down. This will affect that behavior, right? I mean, that's what you just said.
So, content Astra houses are somewhat different. So,
Oh, okay.
anchoring a single content structure, right? Like, say I want to anchor structure off an enemy staging. I plan to show up to that timer. I'm anchoring that because I want a fight. I want to go and fight over it. And so the cost of doing that is increased by a little bit, but not enough that I think would seriously stop anybody from doing it.
Yeah, right. And the fact that you can get the core in there, the quantum core in there with a probe, right? With a, just a frigate with some cargo expanders, I think they'll still be a thing.
And that's a true content Astra house, not towering into your enemy's base and just giving them a hard time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
okay.
And like you don't want to prevent people from putting things down they'll fight over.
Okay,
but
sorry.
It does also, you want.
So it's not
you want to prevent people from just anchoring a ton of structures and then getting to be very, very selective about which timers they show up to and trying to use just raw burnout in terms of making people not want to fight back, right?
Yeah, if you were going to put down an Astra house to fight over, you're still going to do it. Like this isn't going to prevent that for the most part.
Circle back to the HOSEC part of this. Looks like chat's talking about this.
Can you read what Kenneth the Gamer said?
Yeah, Kramer the Gamer said, no, you are now talking about groups with 10 to 40 people that might be small group for you, but there are hundreds of groups with 5 to 10 people that have 2 to 5 structures that will be rolled over. Those groups could always hire mercenaries, though. I think this
that's the end of his quote.
Opens up an opportunity. Yeah, that's the end of his quote.
That's the end of his quote.
Well, that goes back to what Murray was saying, which is this doesn't change who is a target. It just changes how the reward for killing.
Right, but I also believe that this is like I was trying to say, but Matterall kind of reminded me to whoa, he quote was over.
Yeah, I think people need to know where he stopped talking.
Yeah, that's where he stopped talking for sure. But that this opens up an opportunity for mercenary groups to come in and people to actually want to hire them to defend their structures now with these cores in them. So that might have some new gameplay come up from this.
Well, yeah, if they're really happy, man. If mercenary groups flourish and form and become actual competing businesses over this, that would be super. Caleb would love something like that. But I mean, I'll believe that when I see it.
He was livid this morning.
Yeah, I heard Caleb was
I couldn't
disappointed.
say anything. I was unable to talk, but I wanted to say, chill out, you guys. Analyze, stop pontificating. But I couldn't, and so it went on for a while.
The impression that I got was that Caleb was against because the cores come from the game and not from players.
I don't know. It was like a river of negativity on this is not good. And do you guys?
One of Caleb's big objections.
What were they? Not just Caleb, but what were the objections this morning? I don't want to put it all on Caleb.
So to be fair, and I think this is one of the things where I just differ philosophically from Caleb, is whether or not you believe that small, and by small I mean actually tiny groups or even solo players should be able to own citadels in HiSec, right? Which to me, I'm not sure if I think they should. If you can't defend the structure, you shouldn't be anchoring it, is kind of my philosophical view on it. But if you
when you're done, I definitely want to comment on that.
Either it's nice for players to be able to kind of put down their own, flag in the sand, even if it is kind of an irrelevant flag, or do kind of small scale industrial stuff on their own and not generally be bothered, then you would differ from me on that viewpoint, and you'd probably view this change pretty negatively.
High-sec organizations are super soft. Like, they can put down structures with abandon and just expect that no one will bother to attack it, and they never are thrust into situations where learning is required, or encouraged. And if this changes that, then that is like a massive positive. Like, I would love to see high-sec essentially have to fight for its space just like nullsec does. Like, if the players want to live in that space and exploit that space, then in theory, if it was in the null block's interest, they have enough manpower to come in and operate high-sec and ensure that no one has a good day except for them. Like, if they really, really wanted to. And I feel like that, players that live in this space are essentially existing there, but for the grace of nullsec not caring enough to change that. And I would like for that not to be true. I would like for high-sec players to live in high-sec because you can't dislodge them if you tried. Like, I want them to be hard, and they're not hard. And if this begins to change that, that's a positive.
Do they have to be hard in the same way? Do they have to be excellent fighters to be hard? Or can the state protect them? Because they are living in Empire space. Why isn't Empire space strong enough to protect them?
We are Empyreans. We live effectively outside the law. The only thing they have on us is Concord.
Lowsec is Empire space too. Are the Empires going to protect?
Nullsec is not Empire space. Nullsec is literally like sovereign space of player organizations, quite literally.
I said low.
Oh, sorry, Lowsec.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The point is that if you're
has a fair point though, which is that like high-sec is to some extent supposed to be kind of the starting spot, the easier point. And there are some things, if this change goes through, that I would like to see to make things easier for solo and very small groups of players that are like quality of life changes if CCP is going to kind of take away the option to have citadels.
That is a misconception of high-sec, I think. So I feel very, very strongly that the only starting areas in the game are the systems that are called starter systems. And once you're outside of that, you're just in Eve now. And
I think
there's suicide gang. Well, there's
a lot of people who disagree with that.
Right. No, you're right. A lot of people do disagree with that. This is not necessarily the most popular viewpoint, but I'd like to expound on it because I think it's important. I think that if a lot of people heard this, then they might reconsider. You're out of the starter systems, you're just in Eve. And it's as dangerous as everywhere else. There's different kinds of threats because there's Concord around, but there's suicide ganking, which doesn't exist elsewhere. It's just simply not a concept where there's no police. It's just different space. It has different challenges, different opportunities to exploit. And it's just a different texture. It's not easier or harder or safer or more dangerous. A lot of people will tell you that nullsec is safer than high-sec. And I don't think that sweeping statements like that are valid, but the point is that the fact that people are saying that means something. I don't think that high-sec is starter areas. I think starter areas are starter areas, and high-sec is just Eve.
So, but that's not true because when you're starting the game, they send you out of the starter area all the time on missions.
Yeah, they send you out of it, exactly. But the starter area is the starter area. And like if you're not in a starting system, the gloves are off. Ganking and everything. It's all the scamming and all the scummiest stuff and all the meanest, nastiest, sandboxy fight, every man for himself, the survival of the fittest. It all applies the moment you leave a starter system.
I'm going to push back on that, if you don't mind, in that I don't feel that EVE Online is reserved for PvP alone. How many times do we decry changes that make everything go slower? Because people are saying, I can't get into my content. I can't find people to kill because you keep making travel slower, or you keep putting things in the way of me finding people, or your mechanics make it so people are rare. Therefore, I can't get my PvP content. We hear that all the time. That's why you have the proving grounds, so you can get right in there and fight.
You're limiting the definition of PvP to PvP combat, but the fact is that this is a competitive
let me just keep
Well,
it
this
there
is a
for a
competitive
second.
universe.
Now, the
It's
opposite
simply
side
existing.
of that, sure, but the opposite side of that is PvPers are basically saying they want more targets, they want more activity, and all this other stuff. But there's some people who just want to exist in this game. So the opposite side of that combat-oriented PvP, okay? Combat-oriented PvP is, I just want to exist, explore, travel a little bit, see some things that are beautiful. And you keep making everything where I'm attackable all the time, non-consensual PvP. How am I supposed to do what I want to do if I'm always a target? Always.
Eve has never been the place for people who don't want to be attacked. It never has been, and I don't think that it ever will be. I mean, it's gotten a little soft in the middle over the fat years, but that's changing. Like,
So, while there are obviously dangers to being in high sec, there are a lot of mechanics which directly contradict your idea of it just kind of being not the easier space to live, right? Because of the way Concord works, running missions in high sec in a reasonably costed ship, you are functionally immune to being killed because nobody's going to just shoot a Dominix.
yeah, the risks are different.
No. The risks are less. If I take that same Dominix and run missions in low sec or null sec, I will be attacked. The reward is greater, but the risk is greater. And those are the same kinds of mission mechanics, and often just straight up the same missions, because CCP's mission system isn't very spicy. There are many other mechanics where it's baked in as well for a more casual player base. Times between structure reinforcements are longer in high sec than they are anywhere else, to give the defender more time to prepare when they are attacked.
I don't disagree.
There are a lot of mechanics that are just safer in high sec.
I don't disagree that
and there's not really an equivalent of like, high sec is more dangerous in some way than other areas, because it really isn't.
I don't disagree that it is simpler, and there are certain core aspects of the sandbox that are removed, like the fact that police exist at all. Like, that's very not sandboxy. That's God stepping in. So we accept that, but the core, like the thing that remains true across all bands of space and all flavors and types is that this place is always dangerous, like no matter what. And not just in terms of someone physically shooting at you, but existing in this universe, owning creating a character, whether it gets logged in or not, no matter what it does, means that you exist in a competitive universe, and people can, aim competitive acts, target competitive acts at your character.
Well, PvP is evasive maneuvers as well. It is hiding out from people. There is some exhilaration from escaping. That's almost as exciting as fighting and winning. So it's not just about who the winners are. It's more about like what game are you playing? EVE Online is multiple games. And it seems to me a lot of the development over the years, at least since 2011, has gone from imaginary virtual world to space combat simulator. Like, that seems to be what the balance passes are about. That seems to be about what the conflict drivers are, which this is. It's a conflict driver. A lot of the development has been to get us to fight each other, to have those exhilarating, fist-pounding moments.
So
And
we really need to address.
Some people just want to be completionists. They just want to collect all the things.
So people say, isn't it a sandbox, and therefore my playstyle X is valid, and playstyle X can include people not doing stuff to you. So the answer is that yes, it's a sandbox, but that doesn't mean it's bland nothing sand. There is a flavor to this that was given to it by the developer. Like, they had an intent for the flavor of the sandbox, for the kind of things you're going to see. And one core aspect, a thread that has gone through the design of the game from the very, very, very start, is that this is always dangerous. Like, there's no one, like, no dev has ever said that there are places that are just safe and not dangerous, with the one exception of starter systems. There are certain specific protections there for starter players and starter systems. Like, that's the bottom line.
Right. And
Why is
to
that?
that point,
Because, go ahead.
to that point, you have, alliances like a Silent Company pop up where they can't be war decked, right? Because they don't own any structures. And that's a new mechanic put in to help HiSec be a little less dangerous for newer groups and let them get their feet wet a little bit before they can be attacked again, like by dropping a structure. I think this mechanic has already been in the game. This just the quantum cores just emphasize on that just a little bit more, and it gives the pirates something back that they lost from the change. So you can't be war decked unless you drop a structure. So
Yeah, so from chat, Humanissimo says, as a starter, you need to leave the system to do almost anything, and that's correct. What the protection amounts to, the protection for starting players and starting systems amounts to essentially spawn camping. Like you spawn there, you're in the solar system, you can collect your wits, you can get your ship together, you can get everything you need, and then you can go out into the scary world and try again. And you can't be killed while you're preparing and getting your wits together. That is what it amounts to.
I see your point of view, and it's an interesting point of view. I also feel like there's some bigger themes about push button, expect certain result, and you get a totally different result, and then you're confused as to why, and then the game makes no sense, and then you figure out it's going to take me a while to figure this out. I don't have time for that. I'm out of here. And this is why EVE has remained a niche game. But I also think that a lot of that niche game might be some of the stuff that keeps it going for this long, but it also might actually eliminate possible people who want to play on the fringe of certain activity that we're just losing because we're not built for it.
well, I think like I was alluded to earlier, I think the mechanic they put in place where you can't be war decked unless you drop a structure kind of protects that player and that play style.
You will not get me to argue against the fact that our onboarding as a game and as a community is horrifyingly bad. Like all involved parties, CCP and the player base, are lacking in documentation and explanatory material. Like the UI is difficult, and it's made great strides, and the tutorial has made great strides, but like everybody's missing the mark on this one real hard right now. So I agree that the game is dangerous, and that scares people off, and you're going to push people away.
Well,
and you're
might be
right.
the secret sauce too, though.
But I feel very strongly that that gameplay, that soul of the sandbox, isn't the problem. The problem is that people aren't prepared for it. It's about expectation management. And if the marketing was right, and the message that got out was right, and the onboarding was right, the players are in the right mindset, then getting killed a gazillion times would be exhilarating, because there are other games where getting killed a gazillion times is exhilarating.
Well, but
it's the ones where you respawn right away and it's real easy.
Yeah, getting killed right away desensitizes you to the value of death.
Yeah,
and death is a serious business in EVE Online. That's one of the fundamental pillars of EVE Online. So going out there and getting killed over and over and over again works directly against what you're supposed to do.
That's why I don't say desensitizing. Getting killed repeatedly in a cheap ship doesn't desensitize you to loss. It puts loss into perspective. It gives you the perspective. It's like, these are losses that matter. These are losses that don't matter. This is how you avoid the losses that don't matter. This is how you leverage. Here's how you avoid losses that do matter, and this is how you leverage the losses that don't matter. Like, it's all about understanding the ecosystem of loss.
I'll have to unpack that one. Not sure I get it, but okay. We need to wrap up and move on to one more thing. You guys are welcome to stay, Fonsway and Marie. But we wanted to talk about. Oh, actually, we lost Gregorian, who was actually there. There was a system. There was a fight in a system that we knew about recently called Y-2ANO, and that system is in Fountain. It is the border system from Fountain to Delve. Let's go back to Dotland. Put us in the right place. This is Fountain. And this is Y-2ANO. And this is the world view of it. So we can, oops. Let me do a back step. Let me get to the global view of it so you can see it on the map. This will take a second to zoom out. Outline's always been funny that way. If you zoom out more than once, it goes to the full map. I guess that was some logic built in, but that's not what I'm trying to do. I just want to get a medium perspective. So there you go. There's Fountain. And here's this long jump. See this here? To Delve. And what that means is that the last Keepstar, the battle in Y-2ANO was over a Keepstar. It was an armor timer. It went undefended. However, it looks like the Imperium did switch out some of the modules, and they maybe the rigs. They made it incredibly armored, so it took a long time to cut through. More so than the last time they were there, where Pappy was turned back by a awesome bombing run by Imperium. But they were able to get through the armor timer, so this Friday will be the final timer for that Keepstar in Y-2ANO. Was anybody there?
I was not there at that fight, but this, I don't know how much this actually means. This is probably just them finishing up what they started and got turned back from a couple weeks ago. Just because I don't see them trying to attack Delve from this point. I think they'll move back to Aquarius and catch and try to go and then try to attack from that angle. It'd be very, very odd if this amounts to anything more than just a Keepstar kill.
Well, we'll see. I mean, at the very least, it's a little bit of, I should say, finishing up Fountain business that Pappy is doing right now. They took over this entire region in about 50 days, which was, for some people, they say it was a lot faster than it should have been. And for other people, it took a lot longer than it should have. Imperium thinks it took too long. Pappy's super happy and delighted that it happened so fast. But Fountain is conquered. By the way, in 2013, Fountain was fought over by the Imperium, Goonswarm, and friends, and Test. And Goonswarm won and kicked Test out of Fountain. So that was...
I'm assuming you don't want me to answer chat, by the way.
Is it on this topic?
No, it was they had replied to the previous topic before you moved on.
We'll come back. I just want to get this one done. And on Delve, you have the Imperium waiting for Pappy or I don't know, armoring up, setting up the walls, doing whatever they're doing to make it hard for the invading forces to win. They actually put down 2 more Keepstars in their headquarters system of 1DQ. And I guess that's a sign of further fortification or defiance. I don't know. In any case, Y-2ANO is now in its armor and, final timer. It's going to be going towards Hull, and it will have its final showdown on Friday. We'll try to cover that live. Okay, we're going to let you answer, Fonsway, then we're going to wrap up. Go ahead.
Yes, there were 2 people that addressed me. I just wanted to make sure that I understood their viewpoints because I think there was a communication error. So I agree with AJB saying that retaining people is a problem. We have to put the effort in the correct place and not in the wrong place. So it's saying so people get scared and they leave, let's make them not get scared. Good. But how do you do that? And the way to make people not be scared is not to make the game less scary. It's to prepare them for the scariness, and that's better documentation, better onboarding, better connecting them up with other players, better introducing them to the concepts, better attuning them to loss and what loss matters, the scale of things. Because people don't understand the scale of things when they start. They don't understand the value of a ship. 1 million, 10 million, a billion. These numbers don't matter. That's why people care about their first million, because it's silly. So that scale is not communicated well, and they don't know what to expect. And when expectations aren't met, they get scared or they get upset, one of the two or both. And then I guess that kind of answers the second one as well. Getting killed and losing nothing is easy in those other games. If people popped back and lost nothing, they wouldn't care. But so I think that addresses both of it. It's about expectations and introduction and indoctrination. You know, getting the information out there, presenting accurately what they're going to see before they see it, and you know, expectation management. And that's what's going to retain players, not making the game less scary or difficult or wide open. You know, where the gloves are off. Matt, you got real quiet.
Thank you. I actually turned my volume down. I want to say hi to Hateless, who's a buddy of Talking in Stations. And we're going to interview with him on Sunday for the week show. We're going to go over missions. He is a master at cracking missions, and very few people like him.
You know, Hateless, I just hop into voice. You probably could do that too if you.
Yeah, all you do is jump in. No, I'm just kidding. We'll get you special permission so you can jump in and weigh in on topics as they come up. But we're definitely going to set some time up with Hateless this weekend, which is good. And thanks for Lothar for the subscription. I think that's what it's called. And thanks, guys, for coming around. That's all the news that we have today. I want to thank Marie that came by, Fonsue Gregorian that was here earlier, and of course Matt XR. Thank you, guys. Also want to thank our Patreons. You can help out Talking in Stations if you like this effort. If you want to see it every day, help us out at patreon.com/Matterall. And we will keep coming to you at this hour. This is our new hour, so we'll be coming at this time. So I think it's midnight UTC. So we'll kind of wrap up the day for you. And now I want to send you over to a different group. This is Trash Talk. I guess we're going to send you over there since it's Talk and we're Talk too. So it kind of seems similar. But enjoy this raid, and we will see you tomorrow.